AM 1380, The Biz, the Wall Street Business Network.
Are you one of the 9 million Floridians living in a community managed by a property manager or HOA? If you've ever wondered what your rights are as a resident or what your role is as a volunteer board member, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Condo Coaches, your resource for when your gated community starts to feel more like you're stuck behind bars, or when that guy next door decides that a hot pink Chevy on cinder blocks really sets the tone for the neighborhood. The Condo Coaches is brought to you by lmfunding.com. Find the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. And now your host, Johnny Torres.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for listening from anywhere, everywhere you may be doing so. It's the Condo Coaches radio show, a team of volunteers and experts sharing our expertise, helping you through your issues, your questions when it comes to running your homeowners or condominium association effectively, efficiently, and on budget. Joining me every week is head coach Dean Akers. How are you, sir?
Johnny, I'm doing great. Just another fabulous week of questions, another fabulous week of helping boards.
Yeah.
I tell you what, with 48,000 boards in the state of Florida, I think our mission is just getting cranked up.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredible the response we get week after week on the work we're doing here. You know, we're getting great feedback and also great questions that, again, you may feel like you are dealing with this and this is the only crazy thing that could ever happen in your community. Well, trust me, that thing is very likely to be happening in another community out there. And so your questions, your issues help us provide better content and also help other communities around out there that may be struggling with that same issue.
I think so. I've had a number of people go, wow, they'll actually email and say, thank you, we heard this, we were wondering the same thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so every week what we do is we bring on experts regarding a different topic that your community or homeowner association may be dealing with. And we talk through all the ins and outs and try to get as deep on that issue as we can in a single hour. And then we bring this show to you statewide through incredible radio stations, including now the big powerhouse WJNO down in the Palm Beaches. Thanks to those guys for carrying our show. And then, of course, we broadcast it online when we come in and record the show on Mondays. And so for those of you listening right now here in the Tampa Bay area where the show originates, we're actually going through a tropical storm.
Yeah.
And so
I think you jinxed it last week having Noah on.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, last week we had Nicole here from the National Weather Service. We got great information on how they do what they do in terms of predicting storms and obviously giving a lot of great advice as to how to prepare to deal with these storms. And then Monday morning, sure enough, here we go, tropical storm hitting the Tampa Bay area, South Florida getting pelted by tons of rain as if they needed it, because, those guys down there have just gotten more rain than they know what to do with. Fortunately, the Everglades never gets enough rain, so hopefully they'll be getting plenty of it with this tropical storm. The Sunshine Skyway Bridge is shut down. I'm actually pretty shocked that there was still quite a bit of traffic coming into work this morning. And I think it was just the shock of waking up and there being a tropical storm, and it's like, well, I guess we got to go to work anyways. And so, that goes for the Condo Coaches as well, and here we are.
Well, we have Pat with us today, who you'll introduce, and we'll talk more with him. But we were talking earlier at lunch, and Pat lives out in the St. Pete Beach area, and his wife just called him and said the power's out.
Oh, geez.
So he's living the dream. The season's 52, and all the things are good.
Yeah, so it's Dan.
Dan. I'm not,
it's all right.
I'm right, Dad.
It's okay. It's been a crazy day again. Driving through a tropical storm to get here.
At lunch he goes, Dean, you're getting old.
No, I did not. Now come on.
But Dan McCready is joining us today. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Dan.
You're welcome.
We appreciate you for being here because we are going to talk about a very important subject today, which is elections. We've talked previously about elections. We've actually had John, who is also a friend of yours, and he's also part of your team. And we've talked about the importance of elections and how to run those smoothly. We even put a booklet together in how to run your homeowner association elections efficiently and effectively and accurately. And so we'll dive into that a little bit. But today we're going to take the angle from electronic voting.
Yes.
Right. And we're going to dive into that. Obviously, it's when it comes to government elections, it's still a controversial topic. But we're going to talk about, obviously, how you've addressed some of those things and how we can assure that, this is obviously a great platform to use now in 2017 for association elections.
Yes, electronic voting solves a lot of problems.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. But what we would like to do, and feel free to chime in, Dan, is we like to open our mailbox, go through some of the questions and statements and feedback that we've gotten from people who listen to the show. I want to open this up with Lon Wagner's email, and Lon writes to us from a property management company, which we love the property managers out there. They do a lot of great work. They work really hard, and again, they're not all created equal, so, we hear about the good ones and we hear about the bad ones. I think we've got a good one here in Lon. He's not only an owner in this particular community that he lives in, but he's also in a little bit of the real estate business. But he says he's listening to the show out in Maitland, so thanks to everybody listening out of Orlando. And he's asking about the booklets that we always talk about. The booklets, if you're looking at downloading them from our website, and I'll get into a little bit more detail on the booklets later on in the show, but they're at thecondocoaches.com/playbook. That's thecondocoaches.com/playbook. Now 6, soon to be 7 booklets already, but 6 of them are now on our website that you can download absolutely free. And they tackle just about every topic you can think of, from how to run elections for your association to how to manage your community's finances, how to collect delinquent association fees, and even like a top 10 list of the top 10 things you need to know if you're an HOA or a COA board member. So those books, incredibly valuable. We've printed off thousands of copies of these, and we're giving them to you absolutely free. All you got to do is go to visit our website, fill out the form so we know you're a live, living human being, and then right there you'll get them not only in your email, but once you fill out the form, you can download them right there from the website. So absolutely go ahead and do that. And then, the reason Lon emailed us was because he also wants hard copies.
Yeah.
And so we've got those on the way out to Lon. And if you want a hard copy as well, just shoot us an email and let us know how many copies you need of each booklet. And you can do that by emailing us at help@thecondocoaches.com. That's help@thecondocoaches.com, because that's what we like to do around here.
And we're doing something really cool in the markets. We have volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
We're having the volunteers, if chosen, to bring a copy of the book to them. And so it just creates another connection point so they can say, well, I need bank and I need this. And our volunteers that are in that market are coordinating the other volunteers to help them out. And we've had some big wins in the last 6 months for associations.
Well, and it's a lot easier for us to hand deliver these booklets than it is to mail them, and then you save time and money by just having one of our volunteers in the market just hand deliver those to you at your community and to your board member. They might even come to your board meeting if you want them to. And they are part of the Condo Coaches Network. So they are an experienced professional who, again, can maybe sit in on a meeting and see how you guys are doing.
Right.
So thank you so much to Lon for not only listening, but for downloading our booklets and for also encouraging people to get the hard copies as well. And then we got another email. Now, this one's a pretty interesting issue. It's from Kathy, and Kathy sits on the board at Holly Court. Not sure what part of the state she's in, but she is a listener, and so we appreciate her for doing so. She writes, we have a maintenance person on our property, pretty common thing. She says, but he's an employee of the property management company. They pay his salary, and then they bill the community for his salary. In addition to his wages, they also bill the community for a portion of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare in parentheses, penalty. This has been going on for almost 2 years. Before she became a board member, and no one really understands why they're paying it. They've just been paying it, so it goes back to somebody kind of feeling that something's not quite right, and she's starting to kind of dig underneath and see what's going on there. She's wondering what other employee-related expenses or taxes they might be paying, because right now all they do is get like a flat fee for his salary, and they want to make sure that they're not paying for stuff that they shouldn't be.
Well, the quick answer on that is they have a contract with the management company. And if she wants to send us a copy of the contract, we'll review it.
Yeah.
But the management company's contract probably spells out how much they pay. They probably don't have any dog in the fight on the FICA FUTA SUTA. And for some reason in this contract, they've put on something for the Affordable Care Act.
Yep.
Obamacare, whatever, to add on. It's all in that contract.
Sure.
If she wants to know the detail, I'm sure she can ask for the employee detail.
Yeah, because she mentioned that. She's like, she wants to get a breakdown of everything that's included in the fee that they are being billed. And so obviously there's the hourly salary, and then she wants to know if there's a breakdown of other expenses that are falling into that amount that they're paying every month.
But it may be irrelevant. They may have
Sure.
a thing that says, we see associations where it says, provide maintenance man, $3,500 a month.
Yeah.
Period. Whether the guy's there or not. Or we have them provide maintenance man, $100 a day. Or provide maintenance man with the hourly cost FICA food to suit. If it says that, then they should be getting all that data.
Right, and that's what she wants. She wants a breakdown. And again, it may be nothing, right? There may be nothing to worry about. They may be paying everything they need to be paying, but she wants to know for certain. And right now it's a big gray area. Nobody can give her a direct answer.
My bet is her contract is more, it's not employee, that you're not paying the employee like that way. You're just paying X dollars an hour for that person.
Yeah, right.
And if that's the case, she can ask for it. And I would recommend them show her.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they may have burden rates of 20% for overhead and stuff in that, and they've come up with a hourly charge.
Well, and Kathy, we do have a condo coach who's going to be reaching out to you if they already haven't done so. And as we said, email us to help@thecondocoaches.com that contract, and we'll take a look at that.
Yeah.
And, might as well send over your financials and get a financial assessment done.
Yeah.
Because there may be other areas where, maybe there's some unanswered expenses there.
Yeah, the financial assessment will help. If she sends the other document, the contract, we'll look at it. And like we share on the show, we don't have a dog in the fight.
Yeah.
So we're just going to give them our condo coach opinion.
All right, as we prepare for segment 2 with Dan McCready, we're going to be talking electronic elections for your association. Don't forget, you can catch us anywhere online. You can catch all the previous episodes, 36 of them, on Facebook, YouTube, and your favorite podcast platform. So you can go to iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, all those podcast platforms, or catch the video version on Facebook and YouTube. It's the Condo Coaches radio show at thecondocoaches.com. Check us out. We'll be right back for segment 2 after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
Life is full of bittersweet transitions. It's difficult to know how these changes will impact us over time. For some people, difficult transitions like retirement, divorce, or loss of a loved one can hit harder than expected and may contribute to feelings of hopelessness or even thoughts of suicide. The risk of suicide is even higher for men over 50 who served our country. Guys like me. That's why support from friends and family makes such a big difference. Every day, your actions could help save a life. Together, we got this. Learn how you can help save a life at veteranscrisisline.net.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thank you again for joining us. Segment 2 of the Condo Coaches radio show, live worldwide at thecondocoaches.com, facebook.com/thecondocoaches, and YouTube as well. You can find over 40 videos on there. With this alone is episode 37. So we're racking up just an incredible amount of content here where we help you run your condominium or homeowner association effectively, efficiently, and on budget. We do so every week with head coach Dean Akers, and then of course our expert of the week, and that happens to be Dan McCready. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing excellent. Thanks again for joining us. Of course, we've the whole electronic voting topic has kind of been in the news, every election cycle, right? When we're talking about government elections, there's a lot of debate over the vulnerabilities and the technology, and how maybe fragile or how susceptible it may be to tampering. But that's obviously something that I don't think is as big a concern, or I would think is as big a concern for a condominium or homeowner association, right?
No, certainly not.
Yeah. And so, give us a little bit of your background, kind of what brought you to this industry, and basically what is, being an advocate for electronic voting.
Okay, well, it began as a member in another community, and realizing that the board needed help. The association was somewhat disorganized, and some sort of online system would help it in many different ways. And when electronic voting came about, that seemed a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Electronic voting itself is a problem solver. There's so many problems with elections have to do because a human being is touching your ballot.
Sure.
A human being is recording it. It's opening the envelopes. And if you are a member in a community and you did not get your ballot, or you're at the wrong address, or you're in Europe, there are so many problems that deal just with the paper that electronic voting itself is nothing more than a problem solver.
So through the very act of having an electronic device where you can place your vote, you're essentially reducing the amount of tampering that could take place.
Absolutely. You've eliminated the whole human process.
Yeah.
It goes right from your thought or your fingers through a computer, and it goes right to the results. There is nothing in between.
Now, currently, what is the law on electronic voting? Or what are the guidelines by which an association has to abide by to be able to implement this at their community?
Well, it's interesting. The guidelines are the same for a condo and for an HOA and a co-op, the basic guidelines. And it deals with a secure system. It deals with a system where that if you're a husband and wife, you must each have a username and password, some sort of authentication. And that electronic ballot then, if it's for a secret election, a board election, that even the computer must erase the name and the address from the ballot. In other words, it's being handled
To keep it an anonymous vote.
Yes.
Okay.
It's pretty much handling it the same way you handle paper now, but just in following the same guidelines, but just doing it faster and doing it more securely.
Sure. And there's less chance of the misunderstanding of someone's handwriting and someone's intent in terms of what they were voting for. Am I right?
Yes, two things about that. The electronic ballot will really never be a ballot that cannot be accepted. The electronic ballot should know if a paper one has already been checked off. It knows if you're a voter or not. You cannot write on it. You cannot check off too many checks on that ballot. It really is a secure system, and will make the voter feel more comfortable knowing that that ballot is a good ballot and you cannot make an error in processing it.
Well, my only experience with this has been, again, at the government level with Florida tried, to do electronic elections. And I think depending on the county you live in, some of them still do it, some of them don't. In terms of what you're seeing, I mean, are they all pretty much at the point where they're generating a paper receipt of some type so that person knows that their vote was recorded and recorded accurately, or what's that counter check, for the person who is voting to know that they did it the right way?
Well, a couple of things. One is after I vote electronically, my ballot is still out there for me to see. I can go back in and still view the ballot that I submitted, so that I know it's there and I know that it was a received ballot. There's also a receipt on my computer saying that it went in. And the DBPR has actually stipulated that for a condo, you must receive an email with your ballot information.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It must say who you are, it must say what you voted for and what time it was received.
So that's your receipt.
Yeah.
I like that.
Very
So,
official.
and for those of you listening, maybe if you're a first-time listener, we talk about the DBPR all the time. It's the Division of Business and Professional Regulation. It is a state agency that does kind of cover these association issues. They intervene when there's issues with elections or the way an association is being run. And so they typically are the ones that help set the guidelines for these kind of situations.
Yeah, the chances of an election audit, election challenge, let's say if you had an election that was entirely electronic, would probably be nil. It would probably just could not happen. If your election is 50% electronic, it's reduced a great deal. And if the system is providing you an audit trail saying who was entering the information, that also prevents many election challenges. So it's saving the association money in mailings. It's saving the association time in handling the ballots and in saving them for a year. and it's going to discourage election challenges. There's really just about no bad news.
So, the notification requirements stay the same, but what you're saying is that because it's electronic, it doesn't need to be mailed as it has been in the past.
In the statute for Florida, if you opt in to receive or to be able to vote electronically, then we do not need to mail you a paper ballot because you're assumed to be voting electronically.
Okay.
So you still need to be notified, as everybody does, that there is a annual meeting, there is an election.
Right.
But it's no longer necessary to send you
to mail the
ballot.
actual ballot.
Right.
Because even the mailing of the ballot, I would think, is also somewhat of a risk because unless you got it watermarked or something with it saying sample and that sort of thing, it could be something that may be manipulated to try to manipulate the election.
Certainly, anytime a human being touches it, you have two reasons to be concerned. One is in the case you just mentioned, and the other is just mistakes that humans will make.
Now, you having kind of been in this industry at the forefront, I mean, how long has this kind of been around now? 10, 15 years? How long has, because they've been working on electronic voting for some time now.
It's been in other states. It is not new at all. It's been around for
Right.
a long time. And that's the good news for Florida. Although it's new in Florida, this is a proven commodity. This is something that has been used for years. The bugs have been out of it for many, many years. So Florida is taking getting the benefit of all of the other states that were ahead of Florida in getting this done. Now, Florida does have peculiar rules, individual rules.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that our software is following the Florida statutes. But the concept and the security, done deal. That's been taken care of.
Okay, so the association, let's say the board has to agree to then implement electronic voting, and they actually have to opt in through the DBPR to do this?
No, I'm sorry. That's not exactly what I meant.
Okay.
If an association wants to do electronic voting, then they have to draw up a board resolution to say they're going to do electronic voting or offer it, and how it will be handled within their association. They give their members 14 days notice that the board will be voting on that. And then 14 days later, at a board meeting, the board votes on that resolution. Only the board votes, and then that begins the process.
So it's not even one of these situations where you need the entire community to vote on to implement this?
No.
Okay.
And DBPR in the state of Florida, they do not certify packages, nor is there a process for approving or disapproving packages. This is
okay, so there doesn't need to be any kind of notification to the state entity saying, hey, we're going to go electronic.
No. I'm not sure they would know what to do with that, and then, that's not work they want.
Right, but it's mostly, as Dean and I always talk about, it's about keeping your homeowners informed.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I contend as he gets traction,
Yeah.
this will not only improve the quality of elections, but it will improve back to the thing we talk about almost every week, communications.
Sure.
It'll make the ability to vote easier. I think the constituency will be more engaged. I mean, I look at some of these things, they'll have a board meeting vote at like 3 p.m. on a Wednesday in a community that has workers in it. And if it's not, if there's not some quorum, then they go, we didn't get our quorum. I go, well, you were never going to get your quorum because you didn't have enough. There's just not enough humans that could come to that meeting.
Imagine, if you would, that the statute says that every electronic vote received counts as if that voter or that member was actually in the meeting.
Right.
So you can meet your quorum before you even open the doors to have the meeting.
Well,
Right.
and that was something I was going to bring up, a little further in the show, but since you mentioned it, we've got only a minute left in this particular segment, but this also allows for greater engagement and participation, right, on behalf of the homeowners.
Absolutely.
Because as you're saying, unless they have some sort of amendment that stipulates that they must be physically present, or does this kind of supersede that?
It supersedes
Supersedes it.
Okay.
It's almost a no-brainer.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sure. Because again, the biggest, like as you mentioned, the biggest obstacle is getting people just to show up
Yeah.
and getting them to come to those association meetings.
Yeah. I mean, it's really a no-brainer.
Yeah, we're talking electronic voting with Dan McCready. He's our elections coach for today's episode, head coach Dean Akers, and of course, how to implement this into your association elections, be it homeowners, condominium, co-op. All right, this applies to pretty much all these residential associations out there. If you want to be a part of the show, hit us up, 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415. You can also email us, help@thecondocoaches.com. That's help@thecondocoaches.com. Segment 3 coming up right after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
With everything you've done to lift up those around you during your military career, we're not going to let your money concerns get you down. We're the NFCC, and we've got your back on this one. As your financial advocate, we're dedicated to improving the financial health of all members of the military community. Whether your debt issues are related to student loans or housing, or involve credit cards, our goal is to help you to defend your financial future. NFCC certified credit counselors have already made the difference for thousands of military members and their families. Let us make a difference for you and yours. Schedule a confidential financial review with an objective nonprofit NFCC financial counselor. Call us today at 877-404-6322. That's 877-404-6322. Or visit us at nfcc.org/military. You owe it to yourself. Get relief now.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Hey, segment 3 of the Condo Coaches radio show, from anywhere, everywhere you may be listening or watching the show. Again, for those of you who may want to watch it live and engage with the show live, you can do so on Facebook. Facebook.com/The Condo Coaches. We record this show every Monday at 1 o'clock, and we have a great time doing so. And so, despite the tropical storm that is currently passing through the Tampa Bay area as we record this show on Monday, and most of you will probably hear it on Saturday or Sunday across the state of Florida or online, we still showed up. We're like the Postal Service. The Condo Coaches are dedicated. We are dedicated. We're not going to let a tropical storm scare us from watching this show or doing this show. I'm sorry.
I almost had the bigger tropical storm. I haven't taken a vacation in a while.
Yeah.
And we have a lake house in Georgia from yesterday till next Sunday.
Oh, no.
And my tropical storm is sitting at my house right now. What?
They're gearing up, ready to go.
Yeah, it's like, what do you mean we can't go yet? And I said, we have Condo Coaches. We have responsibility.
See? Exactly. Well, and you live in Florida. I mean, you live where you vacation.
That dog doesn't hunt.
All right. Well,
maybe I'll bring her a booklet home.
There you go. Give her a little bit of light reading.
Yeah, light reading.
So speaking of which, we have Dan McCready with us. We're talking electronic voting, head coach Dean Akers. Before we get back into the topic, just wanted to remind you guys about our booklets, 6 of them here, and I can't even hold them up anymore. I used to be able to fan these out, but we've got these 6 free playbooks on our website right now that cover all the most important topics that you need to run your condominium and homeowner association. This one being our first one and our most popular one. We've printed thousands of these. It's called the Top 10 Most Important Things You Need to Know if you're an HOA or a COA board member. And then the lifeblood of your association is association fees. So we wrote up a booklet on collecting delinquent association fees. All right. But to do this, you also need to understand your community's finances. Right. So we made a booklet for that, understanding your community's finances. And to understand your community's finances, you need to be on the board. So how do you get on the board? By holding elections. So we created the ABCs of holding elections. It goes on and on. These booklets are amazing, and we've certainly had thousands of downloads. We've printed thousands of these. Go to thecondocoaches.com/playbook, thecondocoaches.com/playbook, and if you want a hard copy, we're more than happy to get one of our condo coaches to come out to you and hand deliver them if that's an option, or we can mail them to you. All you got to do is shoot us an email, help@thecondocoaches.com, help@thecondocoaches.com. Electronic voting. It's about time. It's 2017. I certainly think, we're kind of late on the curve for this type of technology. Today, I got a lot of my friends who are into politics and that stuff listening to the show because we're very interested in this technology from a government standpoint. But when we're talking associations, again, we're behind the curve, and we think that this is technology that should be implemented right away.
Sure. Think about what we're doing right now. We're getting on Amazon and we're entering our credit card numbers.
Yep.
We're getting on our bank and we're doing banking. Electronic voting has the same security as those issues. So it makes sense that we should be there now.
That's right. Well, and so I just, we may touch on some things that we already mentioned in the previous segment, but there's still very little restraint or requirements for an association to implement this, right? It basically just has to be the will of the board to decide to implement electronic voting.
The will of the board and the notification of the members.
Yeah.
So the members can have some input before the board makes their actual vote on it. And if I can just say one more thing.
Yeah.
Those who do not want to participate, their life does not change.
Right.
Electronic voting is not a mandatory option. It just adds another feature, adds another option for getting votes, for getting member participation. So we've taken nothing away.
Well, and I want to reiterate a point that we made towards the end of the last segment, which I think may be the most important point to make, which is that this will instantly create more engagement and participation in your association elections. Because you can do it from home or you can do it from overseas. I mean, it's Florida, right? So we have a lot of people who have a second home or third home or whatever the case might be. We have a lot of snowbirds here in the Tampa Bay area. We have a lot of people from Central and South America down in Miami, and also, in the Central Florida, Orlando area, who, again, don't live in Florida full time, but now they actually get to be heard through this electronic voting because they can do so from any, even mobile device, right?
Even mobile device. And how many times have we sent the ballot to the wrong address?
Yeah.
How many times has the ballot not been able to get to Europe and back in time? This eliminates those problems.
Sure. And so from anywhere in the world, if you can get on your laptop or get on your phone and get on some Wi-Fi, you can participate in your association elections.
Yes.
Well, and it's unfortunate, and who knows? I mean, maybe down the road it becomes a mandatory thing, but I think this is extremely helpful, especially for those communities down in South Florida who are having a lot of election problems, where we see a lot of, a lot of gray area stuff going on. And we've talked about it, Dean, in previous episodes where you'll have family members who are voting on behalf of their loved one or relative who is the actual owner of the condominium or the home. Explain to us again how, what are the checks and balances to make sure that, that this isn't happening, that it's not getting into the wrong hands.
Well, it begins with the association providing the software, the list of voters.
Mm-hmm.
So the association should know who the voters are. And the voters are identified by their first name, last name, their email address. And then to register, the registration is only going to go to that email address once requested by the member.
Yeah.
So the email is not going to be just going to anybody who wants it. If a person does not have an email address in the system, somebody from the association must okay their registration. In other words, the association is really the gatekeeper here.
Yeah.
You just can't just, log in and vote for some election that you're not authorized to vote for.
And so that would be a concern, right? Especially with some of the communities that we deal with that are older, right? So 55 and up communities, for instance. What's the procedure there, the recommended procedure for maybe someone who doesn't have a laptop or a mobile device or some way that they can vote electronically?
Well, it's interesting. It's sort of similar to IRS receiving their returns electronically. The same questions were asked. What about if I don't have a PC? And the IRS standpoint was you probably have a relative with a PC. You have free PCs at libraries.
Sure.
And we never take away the paper option.
Okay. So definitely keep the paper option, but it now becomes more of a safety net rather than being the primary way that people would vote.
Yes. I've heard of a lot of situations where an association will have like a tea and cookies, and they'll have a computer set up there.
Okay.
And as people walk in, they're led over to the computer, given assistance so they can do their electronic vote, and then they get their tea and cookies. Thank Bloodmobile.
That's a perfect lead into my next question, which is how, is it like you see in a government election where there's tons of booths, or is it up to that community as to how they want to execute, or do they have to hire a company to come in and do this? How does that typically work?
Both has happened, but by far the majority is just, the handled by the association. The association, in my recommendation, should have one computer available for the members, just so if they don't have a computer, they can still participate in an electronic vote. But by and large, that's getting more and more an odd situation.
Or if you're a big community, maybe have 2 or 3 where then, people can take turns. But for the most part, you're saying just a standard laptop that somebody has. And then are these just done through a web browser and Wi-Fi? Is that typically how it's
Yes.
done?
If you can reach the internet, you can vote electronically, whether you're on your iPad, your PC, or even your phone.
And at that point, it's just a matter of the homeowner logging in with their own credentials and then placing their vote.
Yes.
And I guess beyond the election of board members and that sort of thing, can this sort of thing be used for amendments to the governing documents, for, we talk about, vision projects and things like that. I mean, can this be used in other circumstances other than board elections?
Absolutely. And quorum has been one of the most difficult things the associations have been battling with. And when you start changing your documents, quorum becomes more critical because the numbers are higher. Electronic voting can really help that out a lot. Plus, think of the cost. The cost of mailing a 100-page document to Europe and to Michigan and Pittsburgh, that goes away as well because you can attach that as a PDF to an electronic ballot.
Well, let's talk about the cost. So what are we looking at in terms of a financial commitment to doing electronic voting versus whatever the cost might be, right, to mail these ballots, which is expensive. You're spending a lot of money to get the again, like you said, all this paperwork out, the ballots and the notifications. What are we talking in terms of cost difference to have an electronic voting system in place?
Well, I was at a community just last week, and they told me they spent $1,200 on a mailing of about 200 envelopes. And the cost for electronic voting currently in Florida runs between $400 and $600. So it's not unusual to make up that cost of electronic voting in the first mailing. But certainly if you were talking about changing documents and mailing a 200 or 100, 200 page package, it doesn't take many people opting in to immediately see a great profit.
Well, and I think the no-brainer is obviously that money that would have gone to that election goes back into the community and can serve to take care of other expenses.
Certainly, that's a great encouragement. If you know that by you doing an electronic ballot, you are saving your community, you're saving your neighbors, you're saving yourself money. Again, we're adding security, we're adding ease, we're adding a faster election, and saving money. Like Dean said, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And so if someone wants to do this, is there typically someone they can reach out to? I mean, I know our condo coaches, we can certainly get them to come out and help implement this project. Where else do you see this kind of being leveraged, or how are some other ways that you've seen? I guess my question is, you mentioned quorum, right? And so how is it established, if the people aren't physically there, right, then how are you notified or whether or not you have quorum?
Well, a software package should be keeping track of quorum because it's keeping track of electronic votes received. That just sort of makes sense. And it is true.
So for every vote you receive goes towards the quorum count.
Yes, every electronic vote received goes right toward quorum count. So you could conceivably meet your quorum a week before you have your meeting. And again, electronic voting is what's going to do that.
Well, and so for the board implementing this, there is a dashboard, right, that they're able to watch where they can see, not who specifically is voted, but just the number of people that have voted, right?
Generally speaking, they can see the quorum being built up by the receipt of electronic ballots.
Got it. But the voting is still completely anonymous.
They cannot see, they can't see the votes like a presidential election where you see I'm getting closer and getting you can't see that.
Okay. All right. A little bit more on electronic voting coming up in the final segment here with Dan McCready, head coach, Dean Akers, the Condo Coaches radio show. Coming right back after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzzed driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You could kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says, "I'm a catch," more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thank you again for watching, listening to the Condo Coaches radio show. Again, you can do so 24/7 online at thecondocoaches.com, Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, you name it. You know, especially for those of you that may have a bit of a long commute, you know, down South Florida, even sometimes here in the Tampa Bay area or the Orlando area, you can podcast the show, which I love to do, and get a whole show in from the time you leave work or leave your home to go to work. And we love doing the podcast version of the show because you don't have to look at our ugly mugs, you know. But if you do want to do so, again, we have the videos up on Facebook and YouTube where you can not only watch it, but you can share it with your friends, and we highly encourage you to do so. We know now that obviously there's great applications out there like Nextdoor, you know, and that's a great service. I love going on my Nextdoor app, mostly because I like trying to help out when the dogs and the cats go missing, you know. But that's a great resource. And then a lot of people are starting Facebook groups. My community has a Facebook group, and you know, and so share it on there. Let people know, your residents and your board members alike, that there's this show out there that could be helpful. And I think we've been incredibly effective at smoothing out a lot of the issues that are happening in these communities all around the state of Florida, even the country, because we've got people all over the country listening to our show, finding our show. I mean, we've gotten requests to go out to California. And so we appreciate everybody listening, whether you be a resident, a board member, or a property manager. We love you listening to the show. Please send us your feedback, your questions, your issues. You can do that to help@thecondocoaches.com, help@thecondocoaches.com. Now, recently we did a show on the legislative changes that happened, some of the laws that have been implemented across the state of Florida when it came to associations. And one of those laws pertained to having an online presence for your community. And now this mostly applies to communities of 150 homes or more, residents or more. And so what effect do you see that in terms of implementing electronic voting, like what we've been talking about?
Well, it's very interesting. As of July 2018, a condo of 150 or more must have a portal.
And we're talking units, again, not residents, but units.
150 doors or more.
Correct.
So they must have a portal. That means a place to log in, and they must keep their documents in that area, in that portal. The thing about electronic voting is a portal,
right?
And it is online. It's online as a website. So it's possible that what you can do is buy the right electronic voting package, put your documents there, and you've met your July 2018 criteria.
It's great. I mean, we're talking a year from now, but a year goes by in a snap. And so it'll be here before you know it. And, you know, change is hard for some people. And so you want to start working on that. You got a year to do it. There's a lot of great free tools out there, which we're more than happy to make recommendations if you want to email us about those. But like you said, if there's a service where you can kind of knock it all out under one umbrella, you know, why not do that?
Yeah, I would suspect that most large associations have a website already.
Sure.
But if you happen to be a website that doesn't have one at all, again, 2 for 1. I don't know if you're buying electronic voting and you're getting your portal and your 2018 statutes satisfied free, or vice versa.
Well, and I know
great.
Some property management companies also provide these web portals for their communities. And so do you see property management companies also adopting this electronic voting software for their communities?
Absolutely. It's way too expensive for a property manager in most cases to spend the money to develop the software,
right,
and then to maintain it and the customer service, and then changes every year for the statute. It just makes sense that a property manager is going to do a partnership with some software.
Okay.
And the best software for them would be software that does electronic voting without having the duplication that's already there. In other words, they already have messaging, they already have document storage.
Right.
Just get a pure electronic voting package and provide to the members just the one thing that the property management is not providing.
Well, and who better is going to know, right, or have the most updated information as to who's a resident and who isn't, who's paid up on their association fees and who hasn't, because that also factors into whether or not you get a vote, than your property management company.
Yeah, and it's wonderful if you're working with a software company that's going to be here for the long run. They're vested in Florida, so that when the statutes change from year to year, it's not something you have to worry about. The software just keeps changing, keeps updating to keep compliant.
And so what are we looking at cost-wise? I mean, you kind of threw out a little bit of a number in the last segment, when comparing it to mailing's incredibly expensive. And so when we're looking at software versus, the not even in so much in comparison, but just give us a range, because, again, there's, probably quite a few companies that are doing this out there. What are we looking for in terms of what an association should be budgeting to implement electronic voting?
It's reasonable if you are 500 doors or fewer. It's reasonable to expect to pay no more than $400 to $600 a year.
Right.
And if
that's
you
very affordable.
If you happen to purchase a package that does unlimited elections or unlimited voting, then why not use that for surveys as well? Because then you end up with educated members, educated voting members.
That's right.
An educated board that's been actually creating the ballots. Same thing as a survey.
Well, one of the things we talked about, I think, in the first segment was the fact that sometimes the time of day that they're holding these meetings is what is preventing people from going to these association meetings. So you could send out a survey and see when would be the best day and time to meet.
Sure. And you have to opt in, and I suggest opting in for any electronic vote, even if it's a survey.
Yeah.
And the opting in lasts forever until the member actually opts out.
Opts out.
So you're creating your opt-in list. You're creating your electronic voting member list, which is going to save you money when you actually need it for doing document changes or a board election.
Dean, you've talked a lot about surveying your residents, and for those who may be interested in implementing a service like this, what are some of the other things that you think they should be getting a pulse on from their residents?
Well, I've totally, the survey process where they should know what the residents really want, what the residents' biggest concern is. And the ones we were talking about at lunch, we have a big group down south. We found out their declaration deals with grandchildren. Well, when they first started this organization, nobody wanted kids there. Now everybody has grandkids, but nobody can bring their grandkids.
Oh boy!
So but now everybody's kind of acknowledging that, and with a survey, they're actually saying we want to change that document. So now a board's not going into uncharted waters. They're walking in to know that the constituency, if you really want to know it, this is where they want to go. So if you have electronic voting where these people are all over the country and you make a major deck change like that, you're going to have your quorum. You're going to have a lot of happy residents because they can communicate and have impact. And the people putting it out there aren't angst about knocking on doors. Will you please vote?
Right.
We need our proxy. If we don't get it, we don't.
Sticking
whatever.
flyers on people's garages.
Oh, I got one association right now that I'm going to call them right after this. They've been freaking out trying to get a quorum for something everybody wants.
And imagine those things that the board doesn't really care either way about. For instance, you're painting a fence. The board doesn't care if it's beige or if it's white,
right?
Or they don't really care if the pool closes at 8 or 9. Why not have the members make that decision?
Well, and the one thing that I think has been so successful for a lot of these new technology companies like Uber and the food delivery services, things like Blue Apron, is, if anything, just the perception of the time that you have saved. And I think what stops a lot of people from going to these association meetings is because, A, they think they're going to run for hours on end, and second, because they'd rather be doing something else with their time. And so if they can save that time by voting online, voting electronically, I mean, that's going to be a win-win all around.
Well, we had a funny conversation at lunch. We talked about the plus 55 communities and adoption.
Yeah.
And then Dan and I are sitting there looking at each other and we go, we are those guys.
Yeah, well, and it's the fastest growing demographic on places like Facebook and just the internet in general, is that 55 and older community.
Well, and everybody quits making excuses for them.
Yeah.
They've got grandkids. They've got email now.
They'll
it's
figure
not
it out.
like they're dinosaurs anymore.
No, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We have one community that's 55 or older, and they are now at 55% electronic voting.
Wow, that's incredible.
And this is still new.
Well, and again, I mean, we talking about, live where you vacation, but, not that long ago, I went down to vacation down in Naples, and it was summer, but it was ghost town. I mean, you see these beautiful condominium buildings, and they're all shuttered up because they come down in the winter. And so, again, if you're running that association, I mean, you have to be banging your head against the wall wondering how you're going to get participation and engagement when this is a perfectly reasonable way to do it.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the things that people should know or how they can prepare to adopt this? I mean, we talked about passing the resolution through the community. Should they form, I mean, we're big fans of committees. Should they form a committee to look into this and get pricing? And, what's the process you would recommend for a community that wants to adopt electronic voting?
Just exactly what you said. Get a separate committee. Get a separate committee to look at the competition out there. Try to pick some software that meets the statutes.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps get the software company to sign something saying, I acknowledge that I meet the Florida statutes and DPR administrative rules, and price check and look at features and ask some important questions like, is this for one election or multiple elections? Is there a startup fee? Is there any hidden fees?
Okay. Well, if you want more information, email us, help@condocoaches.com. See you next time. Thanks for watching.
You've been listening to the Condo Coaches, brought to you by lmfunding.com.